This is a big part of my job, what I'm about to do. I help doctors integrate nutrition into their practice, and what I'm doing tonight is a patient lecture or a patient presentation for a doctor. In this case, it's Dr. Mark Shirilla, and the topic today is sugar and its effects on the adrenals. Sugar being a big stressor. So that's what I'm going to get into. It's going to be about a 35-minute presentation. So again, this is another part after visiting doctors all day. This is sometimes the way I end my evenings doing these presentations. And what's in it for me is that it makes the doctor's practice grow. It gets some to people that maybe they normally wouldn't get to, and it educates patients on alternative ways of, if you will, looking at different health conditions without relying so much on drugs. So the purpose is to educate the patients, and it just goes in line with what I do with the competing and bodybuilding, because it's really looking at nutrition as the only alternative to healthcare. So, all right. These things are going to be eye-opening to you. You're going to understand why you feel the way you do, and then you're going to learn something that I'll be brave enough to say that most physicians still don't even understand how the body reacts to stress and sugar, and that's what we're going to cover today. The link between sugar consumption and tiredness and adrenal problems. So I think this is going to be something you're probably going to want to write some notes on, and just if you have any questions along the way, just let me know. We're gonna get moving here with a lot of information. But first, I want to cover some groundwork. A lot of times we just assume that we as in practitioners, we assume that our patients understand things that are elementary because we go over them all the time. So I want to just cover some things here in the beginning that I think are going to give you an idea of what I think the general public has a lot of misconceptions about. So this is a video that's going to give you an idea of what really is in Coke. So we're going to heat this up, and I think it goes for about 35 minutes.
Do you know the temperature? I'm a science teacher, good science experiment.
No, I don't.
Yeah, low boil. Good boil.
Yeah.
That's gross.
It makes you think about that expression, have a coconut smile, right? You start thinking, this is what we put in our bodies. I mean, what is more American than Coca-Cola?
That's a fun.
What is that, about a cup?
Yeah, I'd say 3/4 of a cup to about 45 grams of sugar. Yeah. Now, this is something that, by the way, if anyone recognizes the voice in the background here in this one, let me know. I think this is really cool.
What I'm going to show you is that your body turns carbohydrate food into sugar. Let's start with a typical breakfast of cereal, toast,
Can you turn the volume
Yeah.
up a little, please?
orange juice,
Thank you.
and a banana. Cereal has about 1/4 cup of sugar. Toast has about 1/4 cup of sugar. Orange juice has about 1/4 cup of sugar. Banana has about 1/8 cup of sugar, and that's just breakfast. Let's say around 10 a.m. you get hungry, so you have a snack. Let's say you have a fruit on the bottom yogurt. This fruit on the bottom, low-fat yogurt, has a whopping 1/4 cup of sugar. And for lunch, let's say you're watching your weight, so you have a skinned chicken breast, baked potato, and some bread. There is no sugar in the chicken, but the potato has a heaping 1/4 cup of sugar in it. And the bread also has a 1/4 cup of sugar in it. So now 3 o'clock rolls around and you're feeling a bit tired, so you have a few pieces of candy and a soda pop. The candy is about 1/4 cup of, you got it right, sugar. And the soda is about 1/4 cup of sugar as well. Now for dinner, you're a good low-fat dieter and you're really trying to do the right thing, so all you eat is pasta. Pasta, bread, and a soda. And the pasta again is about 1/4 cup of sugar. The bread, another 1/4 cup. And the soda, about 1/4 cup of sugar. Now, are you getting the picture? Look at all this sugar in the food you're eating. Incredible, isn't it? Keep in mind now that these spikes of sugar demand a spike in insulin to push all the sugar out of your bloodstream. Now that's just 1 day's worth. Multiply that by 365 days, and then by how old you are, and you should be getting the picture of why most of us have had such a hard time losing weight, and why many of us suffer from such a variety of health ailments.
That is Dr. Atkins, Robert Atkins in the background. As you can tell, it's an old video, but yeah, that gives us, I think, a better understanding of what's in our foods. So many times we think that even in feeding our kids that we're doing things that are good for, we're giving them foods that are good, that are going to provide energy for them. But in the end, all of this converts to sugar. Now, the next step in this is associating that with the physiological response in the body. So for that, this is I think really cool, because this really explains it well. Okay. Here we go. Now, what I want you to do is just stare at the blue circle in the middle. Just stare at it. Stare. There's something really interesting that happens here that will give you a good idea of what we're talking about. All right. What you're feeling right now, although it's small, right now, your adrenals are pumping out norepinephrine and epinephrine. Okay, you know, I tried to, there was ones that were a lot worse, so I try to go easy on you, but what you're going to learn at the end of this is how sugar does exactly what you're feeling right now at a more, maybe maybe less of a response, but just as much of an impact on all the cells in the body. So when we're talking about stress, and sugar. What happens is that sugar causes an insulin response. That's what Dr. Atkins said. So insulin goes up, and when insulin goes up, it draws the sugar out of the blood. The problem with that is that now we have low blood sugar. So this causes a response in the adrenals, the adrenal medulla, and it tells the adrenals, hey, start doing your job, which is secreting adrenaline, which is what we call it collectively, but it's norepinephrine and epinephrine. This is what we call the fight or flight response. You've ever heard of a mother that has to pick up a car because her child's underneath the car? That is a fight or flight. What you felt when you saw that, that's fight or flight. If I were to grab this laptop and just slam it on the floor and just start shouting, you know, what you would feel then is, do I confront or do I run away? But the thing about this response is that it's short-lived. So we consume sugar and we get that immediate burst of energy. But it only lasts so long. That's what creates a need for a more long-lasting response, which at that point, we're getting the hypothalamus. And if you've never heard of what that is, it's really what controls everything. It's inside our brain, and it tells, basically, it sends hormones out, messengers out, and it tells everything how to respond. Well, in this case, the hypothalamus is sending a hormone called CRH, corticotropic releasing hormone, to the pituitary gland. And it's telling the pituitary gland, hey, you need to release adrenal corticotropic hormone, which then tells the adrenal cortex, okay, now do your job. But this is kind of an interesting thing, because in all fibromyalgia patients and chronic fatigue patients, CRH is non-existent. So we've got another link. Not only do we have a link between sugar and this, but now we have a link between sugar and fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. So you see how we're developing a physiological case here that gets compounded more and more and more. Okay, so backtracking. Sugar causes an insulin response. Insulin causes stress because it lowers blood sugar. Okay, let's use something you can understand. You've gone 5-6 hours without eating, and you're edgy. You know, that is stress to your body. So it tells the adrenal medulla, hey, we need some adrenaline. So you get that like second wind, if you will, that gets you through the day. But at some point, that's not enough. As you see that drop, then the hypothalamus senses this drop in adrenaline and starts to do its thing, corticotropic releasing hormone, telling the pituitary, hey, do your job, adrenal corticotropic hormone. Then the adrenal cortex now kicks in. When the adrenal cortex kicks in, it releases hormones we're very familiar with. We've heard of cortisol, right? Remember, a couple of years ago, I remember there was an infomercial that run every morning. I would hear while I was doing my cardio. It was something to the effect of, cortisol makes you fat. You need blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah blocks cortisol. And this was a jingle, and it'd go on and on and on and on and on. But in all reality, what you see there, cortisol, is a very potent factor. Yeah, cortisol actually helps get fat converted into energy. The problem is that cortisol is also very, very catabolic. In other words, it eats you up. You've seen someone who's stressed and isn't eating enough. You see that they get old really quickly. They look run down, hunched over. That's the idea of too much cortisol. So the adrenal cortex starts producing cortisol because that's going to help us get to our next meal. Okay, the problem is we're constantly producing cortisol. It's going to be a problem, and that's why a lot of people have a hard time losing weight, even when they don't eat. You've heard of stories of people say, I don't eat, I don't know. My mom is one of them. She'll say, I don't know, I don't eat all day. Well, that's your problem. You know, what they don't tell you is that they go home and then they binge. They don't eat all day, but then they, you know, then they have a surplus.